Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Wednesday, the 17th of May. So looking at the euro dollar first, and well, it continued up pretty strong yesterday and it's pushing up again today. I was looking across the time frames looking for some sort of resistance, and there's nothing particularly obvious. There's a round number at the 112 area, but there seems little in the way of resistance at that point. Previous highs, lows, from a weekly point of view at least. However, looking at when you start looking at monthly pivots where we've got an R2 just short of that 112 area, that may just put the brakes on a little bit here, but at the moment looking pretty solid. Now, as you come through some of the time frames, you look at the RSI and it's pretty much in the sort of extreme sort of zone, which suggests there's still strength in this market. And well, the only point where I'm finding a bit of weakness is maybe down to the hourly time frame, where we're seeing this sort of bit of divergence going on at the moment. But we're getting this divergence through the Asian session as opposed to into London session proper, and I do wonder if it'll still push on upwards. Now, any sell point from here, I guess, would be looking at the 60-21s and maybe then the daily pivot if it started having a bit of a retrace. But at the moment, it's looking bullish. It may be worth waiting for any retrace like that. One of those retraces may be back to the 60-21s, which it hasn't done now for the last 2 days. Certainly hasn't hit those levels. If it comes back to that area, it may provide a reasonable buying point, but just need to watch carefully if it's coming back to that area. But at the moment, it's, as I say, looking relatively strong and bullish. Looking at the pound, pound's had a bit more of a struggle of a couple of sessions. I drew this little wedge on yesterday, but it's pretty much broken out the top of it and made a bit of a mess. But it's still in that same sort of range. It's the overall range that's sat there, it's still there. It put it in a bit of a fresher high there yesterday, but still in that sort of wedge pattern there on the pound. Coming down the time frames, you see it's very spiky. It's really reacted one side to the other side, really, as we come through the time frames. I mean, we went through sort of a relatively rare occasion where we've hit an R1 and S1 in the same day, which makes it choppy, difficult to trade and really get a picture of where we're going, because it's not really going in any upward direction or downward direction. It's going sideward. So it is giving some decent range within that price action. This morning it's come down back towards its 60-21s. It's actually overrun that back into that weekly pivot, which seems quite pivotal, ironically. But we seem to be moving backwards and forwards around that level. Whether we can hold on to that as support now and we see some sort of move back to the upside, we'll just have to wait and see a little bit. But I'm not trying to drive into this too quickly. But it certainly, it's got the potential for further upside, that's for sure. From the bigger picture, when you start looking at the bigger picture there, as I say, is that sort of wedge in a market that was moving upwards. So maybe we'll get more of what we've seen over the last few days and a push up. I wouldn't be trusting buying on a break of the wedge, for example. It's far too risky because it may just sort of run in back into yesterday's highs or the prior highs there and then just roll over again. But too choppy at the moment. Dollar yen moving much more cleanly now. It's yesterday we weren't too sure in terms of whether it was is in a bull flag, whether it's going to continue to the upside, but it's really just pulling back. It's actually now come back, tested a daily 21, which just about holding at the moment, but it does look like it's going to break. It's clearly put lower highs in, lower lows from the intermediate time frames. Maybe getting a bit extended here. There is a bit of divergence looking sort of price action going through on the hourlies again. So, but strong, and I mean it's just really running correlated with the euro at the moment. again with this, it's sort of when you're looking at it running like this, you just think, well, yes, you can try and start catching bottoms or whatever else, but I would be waiting for it to break that hourly 8 before I was looking at any sort of movement. It has got some potential upside targets there with the 60-20 ones and pivot, but you'd almost be better off be selling into any of those. Right, Aussie dollar. Slightly more similar to the pound, but still in a, well, it's in a tight range zone, I guess, but slightly upper trend with the higher lows, higher highs here. But it's choppy for long periods of this week so far. You see it clearly on that 4-hourly, and you can just see this sort of daily picture here. Quite a choppy pair. Again, it's pitched up again this morning, back up to those prior highs I was talking about yesterday. Actually, I never made them yesterday. It's just about made them today, just slightly short of them. But at the moment, heading back down towards the daily pivot, maybe more. But to me, it's just again too choppy to be trading. And finally, the Canadian dollar. Now, it's caught me a little bit yesterday. It started. I thought, oh right, good. Yesterday it caught me. I think it was yesterday it caught me a little bit. I'll show you in a moment. But it's yeah, I was looking for the continuation to the sell side, but it just rallied back up towards the 8. But then it's rolled over again, and it still looks like it could be on at some point today towards that monthly pivot. If we see the pound and the yen still continuing to push. So yeah, yesterday I was actually shot the 4-hourly. Just caught me a little bit in the morning. It just ran up to that, as I say, ran up to that 8, and then rolled back over, which is what I was expecting it to do in the first place. So it may just do the same sort of pattern this morning. I haven't looked at oil this morning, so a quick flick onto oil. Yeah, I was just having a little push up there. So really, this should be seeing the Canadian dollar coming down, particularly the weakness of the US dollar, but it's actually doing the opposite at the moment. And it did it yesterday. It did a little bit of the opposite move, but I would expect still further downside on that Canadian dollar as it's moving. But it is down into its monthly S2 pivot, weekly S2 pivot, which is sort of given the support, and it's back down to it at the moment. A break of these levels, though, break of this S2, well, there's a sort of a clear sort of point of that monthly pivot, not that far below. It starts breaking down at some point. Maybe it's safer to be trading that this afternoon. So all in all, we're seeing dollar strength across the market. Dollar weakness across the market. So I get it the right way around. With the exception of the pound, which is chopping pretty much, and the Australian dollar not moving particularly great either. So I'll just have to wait and watch for an opportunity. Most likely, I'm sort of thinking, well, I quite like the upside on the euro, but it does need a retracement for me to buy. So it's a bit of a waiting game for me this morning. Okay, news-wise today. One thing that might move the pound again, but it's in a choppy old zone anyway, is the employment data that's coming out at 9:30. Average earnings we'll be looking at, particularly specifically even after yesterday's inflation, just to see where we're sort of sitting in terms of earnings versus inflation, and that will may be quite a hammer on the pound if the average earnings aren't high enough. And then aside of that, then later on, well, there's very little crude oil inventories in the US. Crude oil inventories at 3:30, but at 1:30 we've got the Canadian manufacturing sales. Not a big mover. It's highlighted in red in a lot of services, a lot of calendars, but it's not a major mover. It will give a bit of volatility, no doubt, but that's that. Okie dokie, that's it for me. Have a great day. Bye for now.